Hey! All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Superlative Podcast. I'm Edward Bushi. We have one guest, no edits, no post production, just a sharp live conversation about what it really takes to reach higher levels and what comes next. So let's get into it. I want to be giving a warm welcome to Carlos Russo, who manages 40 real estate tech companies across Latin America for the most active prop tech fund in the world, and says the largest asset class on earth is still in the first inning of its technology transformation. So, Carlos, welcome. Glad to have you here. And yeah, before we start, we'd love to have two sentences about what you do at Second Century Ventures, and then we'll start it from there.
Well, thank you, Edward. Thank you for having me. Very excited to be here in your show. Second Century, what we're doing is we're helping founders and more active real estate companies involved with technologies that are changing the industry space all around the world. So, very excited about doing that. I've been doing real estate for a while and very happy to be here with you chatting about anything.
Yeah, I'm excited for this conversation too because one of the key things that I've never had the honor of having to talk about was is real estate, right? I want before we get into it, right? Before we get to the part where you before the time you were a VC, would love to get your origin story, right? You started as an industrial engineer, then moved into
Yeah.
management consultant.
Yeah, let me try to make it short because it's been a while. I am from Mexico. I'm from a north part in Mexico called Monterrey, which is
Mm,
close to Texas. And I studied industrial engineer at Monterrey Tech. That's how the university is called. It's a big university in Mexico. And after that, I was a while working as a management consultant in Latin America, and then I came up to meet a friend that was into real estate.
mm,
And because of my background of doing management consultancy work, um, this friend was starting a development company, and I started helping him. I really liked the job because also when I was a young kid, I'm my dad, he was an architect, and
mm.
he was an architect, and he did the construction for the houses. So he used to take me to his office and the construction sites, and I just love the way you see how houses are being built and buildings are being built. So I think I had a special likeness to that. So I don't know if you say it that way.
Oh, you resonated with it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a pretty good origin story. It's very rare from someone having a industrial design background and having architecture coming to VC. So I find that really sorry. Yeah, I find that really special. So, one thing you chatted about in our onboarding call, right, was the idea that real estate is the largest asset in the world, right? You mentioned that it's like $300 trillion. Like most people think it's slow and analog, right? But you're saying something's coming around. There's technology, and incorporating it really changes the game for that asset class. Would love to learn like what did you stumble upon?
No, I think it's a great question, and along my career of I don't know, maybe almost 30 years in real estate, you learn a lot of things, right?
Mm,
And I didn't learn how big the industry was at the beginning when we started.
mm,
And I guess I was in an executive education course or something where I've heard about the different sizes of industries, and I've heard about how big this industry was in an asset value, right? A metric. Uh, and they told me it was the biggest one in the world. So I thought about it. It
Mm.
made me think, okay, why is it so valuable? And the other thing is, most people think that the most valuable assets are the big towers you see, like in New York City or Chicago or whatever.
Mm.
But it's not. It's the amount of houses that this world has. So 70% of the value comes from the residential side. So
Really?
when you add it together, right? When you add everything in the world and you add all the buildings, 70% of the asset value comes from residential, and the other 30 from industrial plants and offices and the commercial aspect. So it's interest that's an interesting figure, because when you are participating in an industry, you don't want to be in a weak industry, right? You want to be like in a strong industry.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I think that makes it interesting is the amount of transactions that are going on every year. And when I say transactions, I mean sales, leases, financing, all the different services
Would
related
rent
to real
count?
estate, rentals.
Okay, gotcha.
When you add all this together, it's just, I mean, trillions of dollars going back and forth, you know? So if you start mapping this in a graphic way or whatever, and you see how money flows from one end to another, and the endowments and the funds, private funds, public funds, whatever,
Mm.
you have a dynamic industry. So people sometimes they don't see it that way, but it's a very dynamic industry. And now, how fast does it move? It depends a lot on the real estate cycles and the economic cycles, right? So when there's
What's the
employment,
difference? Yeah.
yeah.
What's the difference? Yeah.
Well, sometimes one lacks another. I mean, sometimes you have several crises that hit harder the real estate industry, but in general, real estate follows the economy. Okay, so if you have bad employment or unemployment, you're not going to see a lot of houses being sold, or you're not going to see a lot of offices being rented, or
Mortgages
industry,
bought.
yeah, industries moving to other cities. So you have some sort of support, because sometimes if you have a mortgage and you cannot pay it anymore, you move to you leave the mortgage and you go to rent someplace else. And then there's self storage. That's like you go and put some things in a self storage facility or whatever. But in general, I'm talking in general terms, it tends to follow the economic cycles. And one of the most important variable is the interest rate, right?
By
And
the
you can
central
see it
bank.
by the central banks all over the world. Mostly, I mean, the U.S. is very influential, right? But so we've been seeing, like in the US, how this has been up for a while, and this has created some problems, right, in the
Mm.
industry, because people don't want to refinance their houses or sell their houses because they have a good mortgage rate. So it creates a certain, I will say, it slows the pace, right,
Mm.
in a certain way. Or new developers, they don't want to develop more at high interest rates. So there's a lot of things that move the needle in the industry, and it's important to learn it. It's different to other industries. I mean, when we have our own language, I mean, in
Yeah.
real estate, like instead of saying like or trying to get the value of a company or something, or an asset, is very different from a stock, right? Or in a company stock or whatever. In the stocks, you have like the P multiple and all this EBITDA, and and in real estate, you have the net operating income, and you have the cap rates and the cap rate
Oh.
multiple. So it's so you need to learn some of it behaves more or less the same, but they have their own jargon.
Yeah. Yeah. No. No. That's really cool to pick up. If you're
Yeah.
dealing with a company, there's different factors that, or rather names or labels that go to it. So one
Yeah.
thing I wanted to dig in on is like you're talking about how technology has improved because talking about transactions, you talking about how technology has improved. Let's say buying a house in Mexico. It used to be 12 months, but now it can compress to 6, right? And like, why does buying something really quickly factor into like progress? Like, what does it mean that something could be bought really fast?
I think it's a interesting point you have there, Edward. At the end of the day, and this is something that in real estate is very important,
Yeah.
and it's time as a variable. I mean, the faster you do a project, the faster you get the permits, the faster you can sell a home, as you mentioned, things move, right? The transactions come along faster, the ROI is faster. So, talking specifically in buying a house, I mean, when people want to buy a house, they prefer to do it fast, right? In general terms, right? You don't want to wait and be nervous about how long it's going to take to sell your home. Some Sometimes you have a job offer in someplace else. Sometimes you need the equity for something else.
Mm,
So if you can shorten the period of selling a house, a lot of good things can happen for the people involved, right? For the broker, for the owner, for the notary, and all the people, the title companies. So what we're seeing with technology now that you we start touching on that is how to shorten, in a way, is how to shorten the cycles of transactions in a home, in a construction, multifamily, big asset,
mm,
investing. And if you can shorten that, then you can move the cycles faster, you can make more money, all the parts. So when if AI is going to help us in that way, I think it's going to be good for the industry, right?
mm. Can I ask, like, 6 months is still a long time, right? Why couldn't
Yeah.
it be 1 month? Why couldn't it be 1 month? What's the process look like? Like, maybe it's something specific to Mexico, but I don't know. It could be another jurisdiction
You,
too.
you know what? I was thinking it was specifically for, I don't know if I should call it third world countries, but uh, as in every industry, you have stakeholders, right? I mean, the people involved in a way for making things happen.
Okay.
So in Mexico, a big piece of it is the government, right? The government regulations, federal, state, environmental, all these laws that you have in every country. You have it also in the US, you have it in Canada, you have it, and they behave in different ways, right?
Mm,
For example, in the US, every city and every state is different. It's not the
mm,
same to do a building in New York that to do it in maybe in Houston, Texas, or whatever. And in Mexico, um, you also have that, but in Mexico, uh, you have some more bureaucracy, right? Some more processes that are not transparent, um, that are not digitalized, that take a different approach, and that could create a period that you didn't had in your performer, right? In your
okay.
Excel or whatever. And maybe you can tell me, well, that happens in Canada, that happens in the US. Yeah, sometimes the difference is that in the US, there's transparency and you can see where your process, you are in the process, right? That you need this now, you need the fire department to look at your project or whatever, your drawings. So it's kind of different, but it changes on every administration, right? And what we're seeing is that people that are very smart and that are now running with good technologies are trying to change the game and are trying to fight those processes.
Mm,
So, what will happen at the end? At the end, I think people are going to have to adopt
mm,
new ways of doing things, but it's going to take time. And some people waste a lot of time of their career convincing people that they need to change and organizations that they need to change the way things are, right? I don't know. I
yeah.
tried to
No,
summarize it, right?
that's oh yeah, like that's interesting because you're saying a lot of the or rather the bottleneck is basically just making sure things are up to code and doing all that bureaucracy work, right? There's you made a point that administration can like change that. You made a point that um, uh, uh, like startups just need to uh, like find a simpler way of doing it, and then also in that way convince the decision makers. Uh, and going by the thread of what we're talking about today, it seems that when you're talking about real estate and real estate assets, and you're noticing where the best patterns are, it seems you want the upside is in assets that allow for transactions fast. It seems that way. I came to this call like thinking, oh, maybe you guys invest in stuff that are like WeWork, where it helps people rent rooms or uh, 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 book certain things, or like simple things to manage your own house. But it's outside of that. It's all about technologies that allow for transactions to be made really quickly inside real estate.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, at the end of the day, there's a lot of different subject matter where the technology can help, right?
Mm.
You mentioned co-work and co-work, WeWork, right? Which is a
Yeah,
co-work
we work. Yeah,
business or whatever. And it's an interesting story. I mean, for everybody involved in real estate and other people, as we saw it in the news and in HBO or whatever.
yeah.
Um, I guess at the end, it makes sense when you look at. Now, let's talk about shared services and shared spaces, right? Because at the
Yeah.
end, real estate is a space, and you saw all these things with dark kitchens and all these things that how to make better use of an asset. And there is a metric that many companies use that is the rotation of assets, right?
Mm.
How many times do you use that asset in a day or in a month or in a year, right? So you can see some restaurants that only open at nights, right? And you say, hey, what happens in the morning and in at lunch, right? If they could use it, if they could use the tables, the chairs, or whatever other things, and the rent, do a pro rata with the morning and lunch, they could be more profitable, right? Or parking, right? There's some parking spaces that are just not used during certain hours of the day.
Mm.
Something that people need to understand, and this is something also happening with AI, is real estate is expensive.
Yeah.
It's expensive. I mean, land gets expensive in certain areas, materials only go up. So when you make a big investment, and sometimes most of the times you make it with a bank helping you or a fund, so you need to pay interest on that also. You need to recoup that investment. So if you're in a restaurant business or you're in a multifamily or whatever, you need to try to keep it full, right?
Mm.
And have the best return on the asset. Okay, that's talking about shared services. So if you have an app, for example, or a certain technology that you could, for example, there's one we had one cohort, yeah,
Yeah, we'd love
that
to get an example. Yeah.
Yeah, we had one cohort in Latam that was doing like a WeWork style of business. I don't know if you remember the gym pass, right? That with one pass or one card, you
Mm.
could go to different gyms, right? That you
Oh.
select, right? So
Mm.
she was doing the same, but for offices, for all Latin America and maybe and the United States. Like I said, you pay a monthly fee of $100, whatever, and you have a seat in whatever co-work space, different brands, different cities. So for people that travel, it makes a lot of sense. And people that
Mm.
have the empty spaces and could accommodate you, that makes sense. So so there's some ideas that with technology you can adapt and make it better. Now, going back to the transactions, I mean,
Mm.
we had a company in the US portfolio that started working with notaries, and now most of the notaries around the United States are
Yeah.
open 24/7 for transactions.
Mm.
If you
Yeah.
if you say that to somebody in Mexico or Brazil or any other country, you cannot believe that. I mean, because at the end, the notary, the public notary is a burden.
Mm.
It's a burden because like going to a dentist and waiting for somebody to
An
give you
appointment.
an appointment. I mean, and you want to do again, you want to do the transaction fast. You don't want to be involved in all the paperwork and all those
Mm.
things because you have to work, So when you have a 24/7 notary and you can do it online,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just amazing the productivity that you gain for people and for businesses to do
Yeah.
transactions, right?
There's no more. Sorry. The administrative stuff is no longer a battle bottleneck.
Mhm.
So like, uh, how do you contend with the idea that some things can be like much more simplified? Do you think there'll be pushback from? Do you think there's a loser here? Like notary businesses will be like, oh no, I'm losing business. I'm a loser here. There, or do you think they'll uh, um, like be part of these tech companies as a vendor um, for these AI notary companies? Just trying to like think of displacement, think of uh, the landscape changing and the players in it.
Yeah, I think it's something that's been lately in a lot of conversations around AI and the
Mm.
displacement of jobs and all this. I'm more inclined on the positive side. I mean,
Mm.
because I've seen it happen with maybe not AI always, but with software and other things. Uh, but I'm positive because at the end of the day, I believe in resilience. I believe in people being creative.
Mm.
And something very important is that um, the world is very different. It's very different how things are done in Mexico, than in South America, than in Africa, in the United States. So there's a lot of opportunity for human advancement.
Yeah.
And human advancement doesn't happen fast.
Mm.
It may happen faster in certain well-educated communities, but not all the world behaves that way. So there's some laggards, and because you have all this curve that of adoption, you have time to prepare, you have time to be creative, you have time
Mm.
to see how to help and do other things with the technology that's arising. So I believe that the world is going to be very positive in that sense. Maybe right now, for example, I'm just going to say something that I was telling my team because we also have a property management business.
Okay.
And I don't know if you might know, but in the one of the big expense items of a property management business in any building is the security guards.
Oh,
Ha-
wow.
yeah, having a 24/7 people physically there
Mm,
costs a lot of money. I mean, it's a huge amount because you need to cover also weekends. And so it's a big expense, and people don't want to spend money, right? They want to save the most in dues.
mm,
And I was telling them, well, this is now. I mean, tomorrow you're not going to have a security guard. You're
mm.
going to have a robot, right? And the
Yeah,
robot is not going to be sleeping on the job, and it's gonna create that feeling that you want to create any burglar or whatever,
yeah,
somebody wants to do harm,
yeah.
because he's going to be watching everything, recording everything, sending to another place. That's not happening in China and in other places. So okay, maybe the initial investment might be a little bit more right now, maybe not in the future, but the
Okay, I
monthly
see where you're going.
expenses but the monthly expenses you're going to save, and you're going to pay your investment, I don't know, in a year or whatever.
Yeah.
So we need to start thinking outside the box. I think this is the right time nowadays, with everything that's going on with AI and all these different models and everything that's going on, to
Yeah.
think outside the box.
Yeah.
Because people, like in my country, like in my cultures, everything wants to grow with people. Hey, bring more people, bring more people, bring more people. No, wait a little bit. I mean, why do we need more people?
Sorry,
We
what's it mean by to bring more people? Is
like to hire more people.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So you have a problem, let's hire an accountant. We have a Let's hire a sales guy. So everything is about hiring, but then people realize that they cannot make money because they are big, and there's a lot of
Expenses are too
grease in
high.
the system, right? So
Mm,
right now it's you need to start to think, what can technology help me to be leaner and meaner.
mm,
And you need to prioritize your processes, see what you can do with AI, what you cannot do with AI. And if you're in a service business, for example, in this case, you want people to do their core functions, and that's to serve people, talk to people, get to know
mm.
people. But sometimes they don't have the time because they're doing administrative stuff or whatever.
Yeah. Emails.
So yeah, emails, reports,
Yeah.
presentations, accounting.
Yeah, for sure. Talking about leaner and meaner, right? You manage a portfolio of companies, and but it sounds like it's all in LATAM. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is your
Well,
portfolio
the
LATAM
the
based?
fund the fund is global,
Of
and
course, yeah.
is the most active real estate tech fund in the world, based in Chicago,
Okay.
with programs around the world, with 8 programs around the world. I run one of the programs. I run the
Mm,
LATAM program. In LATAM, and this is like a practice that we have all around the world, is that every year we bring into the program around 8 companies per region. Okay. So if you add them all together, it's like 50, 60 companies per year
as a
that
cohort,
we
that's okay.
bring into the program. Like if you
Mm,
were a college, you are bringing students, right? But in this case, we are founders and companies.
mm,
We help them grow, we help them connect with more members of our own community and ecosystem. And then they continue their after the program, building on itself and with us as investors.
mm,
And I think that's invaluable. And why is that? Because founders are lonely people, and they are very busy. They get stressed very fast.
mm.
Some people all get sick, I mean, because of the stress they have. And we see ourselves as a support system for them. So if somebody is having a problem, whatever, we call them, we meet, we tell other people from our group to talk to them.
Mm,
So it's something that I think is very invaluable for people that are starting their own companies, that which is
yeah.
very hard to have to be part of a family, a community.
No, that's really important. Like you're fostering something like that's really really special. Like I didn't realize that seems like you almost have a YC model, but it's for real estate businesses, but it's also global at the same time. I want to ask, like you worked with founders in LATAM and taking on uh, real estate related or adjacent issues in LATAM. Would you be able to characterize the differences between the kinds of uh, um, the what the market is like compared to real estate properties or real estate issues in other countries?
Yeah, at the end, the world is coming together, and this is a theory I have.
With the internet, yeah.
Yeah, with the internet, with the iPhones, with the 6G or whatever. Uh, Now there is no excuses,
Mm,
because maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, there was this big gap, between the US and Europe with, I don't know, Asia or Latin America or whatever. Nowadays, you see smartphones and everything, which are computers at the end of the day,
mm,
they are more accessible to people, no? So if you see the smartphone penetration in Latin America, it's huge. I mean, we're talking about, I don't know, 80% smartphones around that. And Starlink, you see it in other places that they didn't used to have internet, paying that type of internet. So when you have a computer, you're young, and you have how do you say, ambition to
mm,
play globally. I mean, now is the time. I mean, you don't have an excuse. You can learn anything you want online, anything.
mm,
I tell the people of our program, you are here because you're gonna learn, obviously,
mm,
because we're gonna teach you stuff like go to market, fundraising. Um, but you can find that stuff on YouTube also. I mean, so learning is getting very cheap, is getting accessible to everyone. What is not something that you can find easily is having a community and talking to people, and getting to meet people. That's something that you cannot replicate a lot with technology. I mean, you can do something like what we're doing right now, talking online.
yeah,
But if,
yeah,
if but if we want to meet and talk face to face, that's something that we work a lot in our fund, which it creates a lot of value because something very important to know is that big ideas come from those interactions, and
mm,
it changes people's lives. So that's something we believe a lot.
yeah. That's really powerful because like in the crypto world that I'm used to, we go to like meetups and co-working events just so that I could like chat with other founders and understand like, oh, you're this is a new angle for where regulation is going, and this is what your thoughts are. So it's really I would find it like really important um, to always check in with your community and foster and build a rapport with them. So yeah, that's really important. So yeah, like Carlos, like I feel like this has been a really fun like conversation, right? Just so I just want to ask like a few final questions, right? Like,
Sure.
is what are you looking forward to in the next few months with the fund, and are there things to watch out for? Is there going to be like a graduating ceremony for your cohorts or what?
Yeah, well, we have a very established procedure
Hmm.
that works. I mean, we start with a kickoff. We have a kickoff next Monday in Mexico City. We tend to invite members from our community and the industry. And it's like a presentation of the companies so that they get to know each other. We get to know them better. We spend some time with them. We have some lunch, dinner with them,
Yeah.
and then the program is like it's like going to school. No, you have like a weekly session where we talk about certain topics, and we have
Mm,
some CEO roundtables. We invite some experts to talk. Right now, people are very interested in what's going on with AI. How can I
mm,
bring AI to my company or whatever? And then we go to certain events, which are great events where you can meet a lot of people, like in Las Vegas. There's one called Blueprint, and
mm.
we tend to have a strong presence in most of them, and we try to help them a lot. Something that's very important with entrepreneurs is the career path of also managing capital, because there are
Oh,
some
okay.
companies that are very good at their business, right?
Yeah.
And they run their business very well, but they forget that they need money along the way. So if you're a founder, you need to have like two hats, right? The
Mm,
one of operations and the one of continue raising capital so you don't die in trying and growing, right? So we help them a lot with that also, and say you need to have a target of raising certain capital at certain levels, and walking the walk with them. It's very interesting. Then we have graduation, but I wouldn't call it graduation, even though it's called like that.
I'm using very rough words. So, but part of it,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, but we use the word graduation. We graduate like at the end of the year in a certain event, and we give them awards, and it's very fun. We get to know each other very well, but I don't like to say goodbye. We don't say goodbye to people. They
Mm,
are now part of our family, no? So
mm,
we tend to keep up with them. How are you doing? Every quarter we say, how are your financials? Well,
mm,
what happened here? Why sales are slower? So we tend to continue. It's a career path that has a flywheel effect also, that keeps growing. The community keeps growing, so it's always stronger. And as you mentioned, YC, I think that's what happened with YC in
mm,
in their way. This is happening in our program in our own way. So it's something that gets stronger every year. And concerns, I would say no. I think that we need to adapt
mm,
to the new technologies. I think companies need to adapt to new technologies. They will do it. They are very smart.
mm. Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, so Carlos, like, I just want to say, like, what you're putting together is like really fantastic. Your insights about like how real estate work and like what the actual thing to look for, right? And where to find the actual signal has been really like really enlightening. I think I personally learned a lot when this podcast goes out and gets posted. A lot of folks are gonna like really learn some really interesting and powerful gems here. Uh, and just before we close off, Carlos, how can folks reach out to you, or SCV Fund? What's the
Sure.
best way?
Well, thank you for your kind words. Well, I'm active in LinkedIn, in Instagram. I write a blog in LinkedIn and in Medium. It's all under my name, Carlos
Mm,
Rousseau. So my handle in most of them is Carlos Rousseau. My website is carlosrousseau.me, and Second Century Ventures has its own website, scv.bc. So it's easy. The program has its own website, which is www.nar middle dash reach.com. And I am very glad to connect with people. I love to talk to people. I love to help. So if any way I can be of help in anything related to real estate, I'm glad to do so, and I'm glad to be here with you in your podcast. And thank you for all the audience that we might have.
yeah, for sure. This video is going to be there for the record for ages for sure. So, all right, Carlos, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have you, and for those watching, like, thank you for staying tuned. And yeah, more to come. All right, we'll leave it at that.